Assalamu alaikum. En el nombre de Allah, el benéfico, el misericordioso. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet all of you brothers and sisters in the greeting words of peace, which we say in the Arabic language. Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be unto you, o en español significa la paz sea con usted. I'm student minister Abel Muhammad here in Chicago, Illinois, headquarters out of Mosque Mariam, the national center of the Nation of Islam, welcoming you to one more broadcast episode of Nuestra NOI with a special focus that we do every third Thursday of the month on the woman in Islam. We thank Allah for each of you who's taken a moment out of your schedules to join us and be with us tonight, because it is a very, very special program. We have with us tonight our beloved sister out of the West Coast who's been soldiering in Islam, a wonderful, wonderful sister who works hard and is gifted and talented in so many areas, always serving the community, always helping with Savior's Day, the singles retreats. If there's work to be done, you'll find her there, and we're honored we're gonna have with us as a guest tonight, Sister Theresa. And those who don't know her, you're in for a treat as you're introduced to her. And those of us who do know her, it's a joy to have her grace our program this evening. And before we start, and before I turn the program over into the hands of our co-host tonight, I wanted to just read a few words on the woman and her value from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He teaches us that this world in which we live has been destroyed because the woman has been spoiled and laid waste. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that where there are no decent women, there are no decent men, because the woman is the mother of civilization. Civilization is not judged by the man. Civilization is judged by the female. I would like to share with you some of what I was taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad of the value of a woman. I'm hoping that the word that God lays on my heart and mind to speak to you, said the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, will resonate in your hearts and minds, that you will begin thinking on a higher level about who you are and how valuable a woman is in the sight of God. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the first act of creation after the self-creation of God, he studied himself, knowing that it was painful and difficult. He studied himself and brought from himself a second self, the female, according to the Bible, is a part of the man. But she is more than the part of a man. The woman is the second self of God. Sisters, if you know why you are as you are, it makes it better for you to be yourself. You are not the woman of man. You are the woman of God. The beauty of the woman is the matchless beauty of God. This is you on the inside. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, civilization is measured by the woman. If you want to take the world down, the place of attack is the female. If you want to build a world up, you start with the female. So every month, we are going to highlight women in the Nation of Islam who are taking on this mantle of helping to build a new world, a world in obedience to the will of God, a world where women can be valued for what God made them, not the woman of man, but the second self of God himself. This is the matchless value, the immeasurable value, and the matchless beauty of the woman. It is really the reflection of the value and the beauty of God himself. So it's an honor to get off the screen so you can see these wonderful and beautiful sisters. I'm going to introduce now two special sisters that are going to be hosting the program tonight. I'm going to introduce my daughter, Amatullah Mohammed, and my dear beloved sister, Amneris. Are you all there, sisters?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Assalamu
sir.
alaikum.
Walaikum
Walaikum
salam,
salam.
sir.
And I'm honored. This is going to be their first time hosting one of our programs. So I'm excited, as should you be as well. Please leave chats and comments, share the program as we get ready to receive in just a moment Sister Teresa. But I want to start with, if we could have my sister, my daughter Amatullah, and sister Amneris, if you could just briefly introduce yourselves to the community and then bring on our sister Teresa. You can go first, Sister Amatullah.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Amatullah Tonansi Muhammad. I'm an artist, land nurturer, and educator here, born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. I've done a lot of work in the community, and I'm a registered member of the Nation of Islam.
Praise be to Allah. Assalamu alaikum, family. I would like to greet everyone in the greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sister Amneris. I am in part of the Lexington Study Group in the Nation of Islam. I was born in Puerto Rico, raised in New York, and I work in the agricultural field presently. I do a lot of translations for our nation, and I am very excited to be co-hosting this talk with our beautiful Sister Teresa today. Um, Sister Amatullah, would you like for me to bring our beautiful sister on, or would you like to do the
Yes,
honors?
ma'am. Go right ahead.
Praise be to Allah. Okay, so Sister Teresa is a student of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. She became a member of the Nation of Islam in 1988. Sister Teresa is a so-called Mexican born in Oakland, California, and raised in East San Jose, California. She is the mother of 3 now adult children and the oldest of 5 siblings. Sister Teresa attends the Stockton Study Group in California, where she holds posts as a Gold Seal auditor and auditor coordinator. She has held the student recorder post and assisted with the Stockton Study Group breakfast program for the homeless, sharing the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad with Spanish and English speaking guests, and organized weekly Spanish study groups. Praise be to Allah. Sister Teresa has served on the Nation of Islam Savior's Day workshop team from 2009 through 2020. And she is on the Healthy Relationships Initiative program team, assisting in organizing the Nation of Islam singles and family events. And we are absolutely excited of having her today, Sister Teresa. You're muted, sis.
You're muted, Sister Teresa.
Okay, sorry about that. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum
Walaikum
salam.
salam, ma'am.
Thank you for having me. I'd like to start off by saying, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, it's an honor to be here this evening. I'm hoping that the lighting is okay. I did a couple changes, but thank you very much.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. Well, we're really excited to have you.
Thank you.
So, Sister Teresa, I'm very, very happy, very excited to see you, to be doing this interview with you. Just personally, I've known you since I was a very little girl, and I'm so excited, for you to share with us some of your background and you coming into the nation. Just starting off first with where's your family from, your nationality, and your roots before coming into the nation.
Yes, ma'am. Well, my parents were from Artesia, New Mexico, here in the United States, and my biological, well, actually, my mother's father was from Chihuahua, Mexico, and he was born to a Spanish mother and a Mexican father, and his mother had gone there from Spain because her mother had conceived her out of wedlock, so-called wedlock. And so my grandfather was born in Mexico, and his father was killed when he was an infant, and he was brought here to the United States at the age of 2. And my grandfather lived most of his life in Roswell, New Mexico. Um, I also found out in the teachings that go learn about yourself, and found myself searching for where my people were from. And there are many Mexicans, so-called Mexicans today, that our people were actually indigenous people. And we are original people, but there were Native Americans, so-called Native Americans, original people who referred to themselves as Mexican people because it was safer for them. And so after my grandmother passed, I learned that her family, her parents spoke their indigenous language. And so our roots as Latinos, all Latinos, come from the conquering of Native Americans by our conquerors and all original people.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for that,
Yes,
Sister Teresa.
yes, ma'am.
So, Sister Teresa, how was it that you first exposed or introduced to the teachings, and what was it about the message that attracted you?
Yes, ma'am. So I was working in Silicon Valley, and I was working for a company in semiconductor and working on this machine. I had been working on a machine that does electrical testing on computer processors before they're actually put into computers. And at the time, I had been put on this assignment to do these tests, run diagnostics, and do the different things that were required to keep this machine running. And one day, a brother came in, and this brother, I had never seen him before. And he said to me that he was a software engineer for this machine and that he had been out for about a year on a sabbatical. And at the time, this brother, what he was saying to me, it was really interesting. And the brother is Brother General Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him. And so during this one time, we were doing a diagnostics test on this machine. It was taking a while, and we're sitting there. And he says to me, "What religion are you?" And I said to Brother General, I was born to the Catholic religion, but I'm currently attending a non-denominational church. I had explored different churches throughout my life. And I said to him, "What religion are you?" And he said, "I'm Muslim." I never heard of Muslim, and I never heard of Islam. And he said, and I let him know that. And he said, "Well, have you ever heard of Malcolm X?" And I said, "No, never heard of Malcolm X," which shows you how dead ignorant that I was. And I said to the brother, I said, "Brother, uh, I was born in Oakland and raised in East San Jose. I don't know my own history, much less anyone else's." And he says, "Well, do you know Muhammad Ali? Do you know who he is?" And I said, "Oh, yes, Latinos love boxing." And so
That's
I
right.
definitely knew who Muhammad Ali was. And he says, "Well, I am the same religion, Islam. I'm a Muslim." And at the time, honestly, it really still didn't have a lot of meaning to me because I knew nothing of it. And then Brother General started selling me cassettes. And eventually I graduated to VHS video. And this material, I still have it. It's just so special to me. And so through that, I listened to the teachings. And he never was preaching to me. If I asked him a question, he told me where to find it. And that's what I did. And I did that for several years.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yes, ma'am. All praises due to Allah.
So, Sister Teresa, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. What was it particularly? What was the moment like? What really made you join the nation, and how did your family respond to you joining the nation, with you coming from a Catholic background like many so-called Latinos do. What was the response from your family upon joining the nation?
Yes, ma'am. So initially, my attraction to the teachings was the minister and the things that he was talking about. They were really relevant to my life. The minister was talking about domestic violence, incest, male female relationships, racism, sexism. And for me, I was just, wow, who is this man? And I'm listening again by cassette. I'm not seeing the minister yet, but just buying all these cassettes and listening to him. And so for me, he was talking about real life issues that I never heard anyone talk about. And I found myself really gravitating to the teachings. And eventually I just stopped going to church because all of these things that he was teaching me uh, for me was so exciting and so realistic. You know, when I was 8 years old, I was going to catechism in the Catholic Church. And my parents, I mean, my mother, uh, one day when she picked me up from catechism, they had given me this picture. And the picture was of the Blessed Mary and Jesus. And I asked my mother, why is everyone at church white? And it wasn't that everyone at church was white, it was just that all the saints that we were praying to, all the priests, all the nuns were white. And I just wanted to know. I was really sensitive because um, very young, you begin to see sometimes the favoritism towards light skin, the derogatory words and language that is used towards the darker. And so for me, I was just very sensitive. And my mother got really upset with me. And she told me that I should never question God. And so I left that alone. But I felt that I was no longer interested. I had no more interest in even going to catechism. But I did. And so when my mother took me to mass, and I say this because I found it very interesting. I didn't know what was happening. She took me to mass, and while I didn't want to be there, I vomited, and it was nothing that I tried to do, nothing I could control. And so my mother had to leave. And so after about 3 times doing this in the church, I began to think, oh, am I allergic? What's going on here? And so my mother took me out instead of leaving, and I would have to sit in front of the church on the steps and wait for my mother and my siblings to um, go through mass. And I was perfectly fine with it, but I was looking for answers. And so even as an 8-year-old child, for me, that was an answer that I needed to have. And so when I heard the teachings and the minister teaching all that he was teaching, for me, it was so real. And it was like, this is what I've been looking for since I was 8 years old. And so it had a big impact on me, and I couldn't stop listening to it. As far as my mother or my family accepting it, I had left home at the age of 16. And in today's world, they call it dysfunctional family, where alcohol and domestic violence were not strangers. And so I left home at a very young age, and I stayed away after I left home, actually, after I had attempted suicide, and went through a recovery process and then left home. And I stayed away for about 3 years. And when I came back, it was about 2 months before my 19th birthday. And I was going to get married, and I did get married. And I married someone that my parents did not, they completely objected to. But I still did it. And so I never felt the need to ask anyone, could I join, or to explain it to anyone. I knew that the teachings were very different. Uh, the teachings and the understanding that I was given went against everything that I had known, and the teachings even taught me more about Christianity than I had ever known. And so for me, again, I didn't try to get anyone's buy-in for my life, for the medicine that I needed to begin the healing in my life, because there was so much that had gone on in my life that I had never confronted. And so my main concern was my then husband, convincing him. Um, and we used to commute like 2 hours back and forth each way to work here in Silicon Valley. And the agreement was when I drive every morning to work, I get to listen to whatever I want. The radio's mine. And when he drove home, the radio was his. And so for several years, the minister was on in the morning. And that's what we listened to. And so I felt like he has to hear this, but I can't push it on him. So I need him to hear this. He never expressed any interest, but he never opposed my joining the Nation of Islam. And on my first Savior's Day in '88, when I joined, he actually flew with me to Chicago, but he didn't join any of the events. He didn't attend, and I was fine. Even though I was alone, I was so excited to be there and to just observe everything that was going on. And so today, my family is very supportive. Uh, it's different for them, but it's been so many years that my parents see the change in my life and see that I'm happy. And with all that's going on in the world today, that for them, they trust me. They have come to depend on me. And even, sometimes my dad who raised me, my stepfather, he'll ask me, what is the minister saying? As if I can call the minister and ask him about something that happened today. And my mother, one time I went to help a sister do some work in another state, and my daughter dropped me off there, and the area wasn't too safe. And my mom, when I called her, she said, I think you should come home. And I said, oh, I'm going to be all right. I just wanted to keep my word. I was going to help the sister do some work. And she says, well, if you don't get home, if you don't come home and catch a flight right now, I'm calling the FOI. And I'm like, what? I had never heard my mother use that term. And I figured that she was getting the final calls because I always had taken them the final calls. And so my parents are very supportive. My mother has even helped to make food when we were having dinner sales, vegetarian enchiladas. And so I feel that right now, my parents just want to know that their children are okay. And we had a relative ask my mother, so what do you think of Teresa following and being with Farrakhan? And my mother told her, she says, well, there's only one God. And so if that's what she wants to do, then I'm fine with that. And I felt very blessed that my mother supported me that way. And that she understood, because there's so much in every family that is occurring right now, to see that we have something that could help and to change our life and make changes and give us empowerment. I think that my parents really see that.
Praise be to Allah. That is a beautiful testimony, Sister Theresa. And I
Okay.
agree, having our at least our parents support us when it is a big thing. I kind of had a similar experience with my mother. So it's definitely a beautiful thing when they stand right there next to you. And, you know, it is definitely beautiful.
Yes, ma'am. Can I say one more thing?
Yes, ma'am.
I have invited in all my years in the Nation of Islam, I have invited my parents and my siblings, and my mother, my sister, and my three brothers have gone to the mosque on a Sunday at during my journey in the Nation of Islam. So for
Praise be
that,
to
I am
Allah.
grateful.
Praise be to Allah. That's beautiful, especially that you were able to be that person to bring it to them, to bring them to this. Um,
Yes, ma'am.
that is definitely a beautiful thing. Um, so, Sister Teresa, I know that you are involved in many things. So I know Islam has enhanced your life in many aspects, as you have already indicated. But can you tell us a little bit about your experience working in the prison ministry and the other works that you've done, writing for the Final Call? I know that you've also spoken to men attending domestic violence classes. Can you give us a little bit? Can you talk to us a little bit about that area?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. So I was thinking that Brother Manuel that spoke last week, he talked about his father being in San Quentin. And I actually got to go into San Quentin and about 11 prisons total, two women, one federal women's prison, and a youth prison, and the rest were all men. But San Quentin was one of the prisons that I got to go to here in California. And uh, one of the things about these prisons, they're just sad and sickening. Um, San Quentin had like 5 tiers, 5 levels of cells that you look up and it was just, wow, where does it end?
Wow.
And to think that our men are put into these cages and expected to come out and be better men. Um, it's not going to happen. It's set up unless they hold on to something and get involved in something good. They're not going to rehabilitate, And so, one of the things that really saddened me was, what it was actually sad and happy, is that when our people, when we get spirituality, whatever we want to call it, spirituality, religion, the teachings, when we get that, just like an education, nobody can take it away from us. It's ours. And so, in going into these different prisons, one time at, I believe it was Folsom in Sacramento, they had prayer before I got to speak. And the brothers were in this gymnasium like area and they were doing rakas. And I was at the end watching them. And here's all these brothers praying. And I couldn't help but to cry because it made me cry, but it made me happy to think that you could take everything from us, but you can't take the God. And
That's
so
it.
having that was
Praise
beautiful.
be to Allah.
The prison ministry actually set me up for where I'm at today. Never did I think that I would be working with brothers who had been incarcerated and some long time incarceration. Uh, I found that I initially went to the prison. I took my children into a Scared Straight program. I don't know if you've ever heard of those kind of programs.
Definitely.
My children were not in trouble, but I just had an opportunity to take them in to see what I wanted them to see, what decisions, bad decisions or involvements in relationships that were not healthy, the consequences. And my family was not pleased that I did that. I took them into California medical facility in Vacaville. I went with them, and when I went into a prison, that was the first time I went in, and I could not believe how many of our people were there and how young the brothers were. And some of them had Nike tennis shoes and looking all ironed and pressed. And I'm thinking, what is this? And so I felt when I went there that I had stepped into an underground world that most of us don't even know. Uh, while we have people in our families, we may all know someone who has been incarcerated. Uh, I've had relatives who wish that their family member would just get arrested so that they don't have to worry about a call that's going to come in and tell them that they're dead. So I've had relatives and family members say, "Oh, he needs to be in jail." But if they knew what was in jail, what was in prison, we wouldn't want our people there, because a lot of our people may commit a crime and they're under the influence. We need help with that part of our rehabilitation. For me, I have found in the teachings to be very healing, to be the ultimate uh, intervention, so to say, because as a teenager, when I left home, I started drinking. And you could call me a teenage alcoholic. It took some really bad experiences at the age of 21 for me to stop and or die. After 2 car accidents, 2 weeks apart, I was done. And this was prior to coming into the nation. And so for me, our people need help healing the pain, confronting our pain, because we self-medicate. And the minister says we do it to diminish the pain. And those are the areas that we need help with. And most of the people that commit crime, they were under the influence. And also the anger that we might have that is troubling us, that is re-stimulated, and crimes in the heat of passion occur. And so for me, I found that work in the prison ministry to be very rewarding, but at the same time, very sad. You know, my father was a heroin addict, and he and my mother divorced when I was an infant, and he went to prison. And I hardly saw him. By the age of 10, maybe I'd seen him 5 times in my lifetime. And he ended up overdosing after coming out of treatment. And as Allah would have it, he came out of treatment from a facility, a Native American facility that I do work with today, that I'm involved with and in communication with. And to think that, wow, you know, who would have ever thought? But one of the things in going to the prison, I used to look in these brothers' faces. And there was a point that I asked the brothers, because it was a Nation of Islam meeting that they were coming to. And I would walk through the different yards to get to the chapel or wherever that we were going to be. And I would notice the Latino brothers, natives. I mean, you really can't tell, because our people, we are so similar, because we are blood of each other's blood. And so these brothers would just look and see me being escorted by FOI and Brother General, and they would just look. And I believe that they recognized that I was their family. And so I told the brothers, I said, brothers, you know, the next time that I get to come here, can you please invite the Latinos to the meeting? And please invite the Native Americans. We could all use this. And so they did. And so all the prisons that I was going to, including Soledad, Folsom, Sacramento, Salinas Valley, which is another very horrible and sad prison, It's like the high-tech prison, and they have a command center in the center, and all around it they have the cells. The cells have no windows. They have doors that are operated by a switch, like a light switch, and they open up from the command center. And one time we went there to Salinas Valley, and Brother General had to communicate with a brother, and they were in lockdown for the gang violence that was happening, and prisons are separated by gang affiliation. Unfortunately, there's no healing there to be able to come to peace and brotherhood in the prisons, because they keep on perpetuating the issue even in prison. And so before we got in there, Brother General asked a Catholic priest, he said, "So what do you teach your congregation about this gang activity?" And I'll never forget that this priest said to us, or said to Brother General, he said, "I don't teach them anything. That's their culture." And so to think that a spiritual leader would take that approach. Most of our people are Catholic. That's what we were conquered with. And that's why we have that religion. But he said he taught them nothing. And it was very apparent to me to see that they were always in lockdown. Sometimes I would go there, couldn't get in because they were in lockdown. And so that just meant they stayed in these cells, that there's no window looking out the door, so they're not able to see the command center. And so when I went in there with Brother General into this area, he had to speak to the brother through the side of the door, if you can imagine that.
Wow.
Because we couldn't see him. And it was very sad. And so to me, our people need help, but it's not incarceration. It is actually the knowledge of self, confronting the pains that we have that continue to keep popping up in our lives and causing us problems with anger and depression that we can get past, but we must confront.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. That's beautiful. Absolutely. The life-giving teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This just a pure testimony of the work and the resurrection that they do in our community and for our people. Regardless of background, all of the original family, these teachings are for. Which leads me into the next question. For many so-called Latinos, the concept of identity is something that is very confusing and is not really fully understood, because like you mentioned earlier, like many of us don't know where we come from. We don't know our relationship to one another. So how did the teachings affect how you identify or your approach to identity as a so-called Latino?
Yes, ma'am. So I came to the nation even though I was much better, but I was still sick. And so I, as a young girl, really didn't want to be black, didn't want to be white. I really just didn't want to be and didn't care. And so for me, coming into the nation and learning what we are taught, accept your own and be yourself, really made me explore and learn and read and fall in love with our people and wanting to help our people, because even though I feel that I had compassion for our people, it was not anything that I knew how to approach or help. And so the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan really helped for me to get clarification on who I was by going back and reading I didn't like history as a young girl. And, for the same reason, I'm not hearing anything about myself. What does this have to do with me? And so I didn't want to sit there. I was going to say some people want to, but at that time in school, I didn't want to hear it. So it didn't interest me. But when I got the teachings, I wanted to learn about who I am, an indigenous original woman. I even am curious about other people now, which at the time I wasn't curious about myself. So it opened up a whole new world for me, and also allowed me to see our connections. And for me, I look at all original indigenous people um, as my people. And I don't need to know what you are. I can see that you're original, and I just feel this sense of connection that I never felt um, with the teachings, which is without the teachings, prior to the teachings. I'm sorry, but um, now for me, it's really interesting when you accept who you are and you know who you are. You begin to see yourself as worthy, as different. Um, and the world begins to see you as worthy. And so you don't even have to tell anybody uh, who you are. You just walk your post in a perfect manner, and people can see you respect yourself and you know who you are. And if ever I've been confronted by insults about Latinos or Native Americans or original people, I know enough to have a class, whether I'm on a bus, on a plane, on a train, whoever said it, I don't care what they are, Black, Latino, Native American, and white. I begin to have a class because we are ignorant of the knowledge of ourselves, and we need to know how connected we are and stop looking for someone to teach us. The minister says that he made this statement about having the knowledge. I don't even have it memorized, and I'm sorry. He says he who prescribes the circumference of your knowledge. Um, I don't remember it, but basically, they now get to control you, you know. And so, knowing that we have been robbed and someone else is controlling us and manipulating our lives by what we're being taught from babies. Native Americans went to boarding school to be what they called kill the Indian, save the man. It was too late to go after their parents. So get the children, uh, Americanize them, civilize them into the Western world because they're uncivilized savages. And so to know that this is the beginning for our people in education, uh, we have to take it upon ourselves to teach our children, because we cannot think that the classroom is going to teach our children. I remember one time, my daughter here in California, when children got to fifth grade, they started doing Native American projects, missions, uh, education on the missions. And so I had already taught my children, and she was in fifth grade, about Native Americans and the missions and what they were used for. And my daughter went to the mission and she came back and she was excited, and she's telling me, and she's like, Mommy, they didn't say what you had shown us. So she goes and gets the book that I had shown my children, how Native Americans, how we were on these missions and we were killed if we did not accept the religion. And if we tried to run and escape, uh, our people were used as examples and tortured, and how the sisters would have stillborn babies because of the trauma that they were enduring. And so my daughter, without asking me, she took the book to school, and she told her teacher, when are we going to start learning this? And she came home that day and she says, Mommy, you're going to be mad at me because I took your book to school and the teacher took it away from me. And she said, we're not going to be learning that this year. And so I had to get in contact with the teacher to get the book back. So for me, learning about myself and who I was and how I see myself was something that I did not have before the nation, because as I said, for me, my self-worth, my self-esteem, my knowledge of self, it didn't exist. I didn't have it. If anything that I had was a lot of self-hate. And so the teachings have been a blessing and a healing in my life.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you for that, Sister Teresa.
Yes,
And thank you for all that you do in the resurrecting of our people,
all praise
bringing the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Before we close out, are there any comments that you would like to make or anything that you would like to say to our audience?
Yes, ma'am. So I would really encourage anyone to go and listen to the minister. I mean, the internet is worldwide access. And so we also have the Nation of Islam Final Call radio. There's so many videos online that we can access and listen. There's definitely healing and medicine and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we cannot be fooled, brothers and sisters, by what people tell us and the lies, because right now people are waking up and our lives are changing, and never before have we needed truth and medicine like we need it today. You know, I have been so busy in my work because our people during this pandemic, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of depression, anxiety, the inability to cope, alcohol and drug addiction. And so it's really important that we search for our truth and listen to the minister and know that this is a universal teaching that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has given, and we cannot think that there's no help out there for us. And so I thank you, dear sisters, for allowing me to be here to speak. And that's it. Thank you.
We thank you, Sister Teresa, especially for your transparency, for everything that you brought, this beautiful history, even from our nation, everything that you're doing in the cause of Islam for our people. We thank you, and we thank you for taking the time to have this talk with us and to bring your experiences and your history within the nation to all of us. I see there's a lot of comments praising your work within our nation. So I just want to thank you for taking this time. And at this time, I would like to bring back Brother Abel.
Yes, ma'am. All praise to Allah.
Assalamu alaikum once again. Thank you, Sister Teresa, and thank you, Sister Amatullah and Amneris, for doing a beautiful job hosting our sister tonight. Well, I say hosting, but she's at home with,
Yes, sir.
with her familia
right.
here. And I wanted to just pull up this quote that you were looking for, Sister Teresa. It's right here from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He says, "He who gives you the diameter of your knowledge prescribes the circumference of your activity." And that's exactly what we're getting and receiving from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is an increase in knowledge. And that gives us a better circumference of activity, because our knowledge has been limited, our activity has been limited and constrained to things that are really beneath us. So we thank Allah for each of you. We thank Allah for you, Sister Teresa. We ask that He strengthen you, your family. We keep your beloved mother and all your children and family and all the believers out west in our prayers, that in this dark hour we can continue to try to be a light in a dark hour, and that we may not just continue, but increase in letting our people, all of the original people and all humanity know that there is a light shining in the West, not just the West Coast, but in the Western Hemisphere. And it's not just for the people in the West, it's for the people all over the planet. And you know, it's interesting. I just noticed there's 3 sisters and 1 brother on the screen right now. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said 75% of the work is with the woman. So it's proper that 75% of the screen should be the sisters.
Yes, sir.
And more than 75% of the program today was the sisters. And this is so important because, as we mentioned at the beginning, civilization is measured by the woman. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that a nation can rise no higher than its woman. And you, Sister Teresa, Sister Amneris, Sister Amatula, you all are raising a beacon and a standard to show our sisters, whether they're from Mexico, Puerto Rico, Cuba, the different tribes, the different flags and nationalities that we originate from. You all are allowing our sisters to increase their knowledge and the diameter of their knowledge, which will now prescribe and set a new circumference for their activity. An activity not just bound by what Satan has told them they can be, but really freed to be what Allah created you to be, which is a second part or a second self of himself. There is no greater degree, there is no greater occupation than a human being can have than to be one with their Lord. So we thank you all for being willing to share each other's stories and just be on the screen representing this wonderful truth to our people who need a light and need hope in such a desperate and dark hour. We thank you all. We thank everyone who tuned in. Share this program. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. If you want to get a hold of Sister Theresa, do you want to offer either an email or social media where people can follow you or contact you at if they want to?
Yes, sir. My email is Sister Theresa, or SISTHERESAX@gmail.com. Do you want me to repeat that?
Sure, please, one more time.
So it's SISTHERESA@gmail. I'm sorry, ESAX@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So with that being said, we'll be back here every second and third Thursday of the month. The second Thursday of the month, we just talk to a believer. And the third Thursday of the month is set aside for the women in Islam. And we have such beautiful representations of it from all backgrounds, all shades of the original family, all backgrounds of the original family, brothers and sisters. And next month is going to be a special month we're dedicating to family, because we now have Latinos in the nation who are 1 and 2, as we had Brother Manuel Ali last week. We have members who, like I have my daughter here, and there are brothers and sisters who have sons and daughters and even grandchildren who are registered in the Nation of Islam. So we're going to feature them next month. So with that being said, we thank everyone for tuning in. We ask that you share the program, follow us, and tune in the second Thursday of February as we start our Savior's Day month of February with a special program. So we thank you again for joining us. Que Dios los bendiga a todos. May God bless each and every one of you as we greet you in peace. In the greeting words we say in our original language of Arabic, Assalamu alaikum, que significa la paz sea con usted, which means in English, peace be unto you. Until next time.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.